I guess we'll be moving on then.
Yeah, UW versus Utah. What a weird situation. For anyone who isn't keeping up to, I mean, I don't know why you'd really be watching our show if you weren't already keeping up with college football. I mean, I think thank you for being here if you're not keeping up with college football and you're watching the show. And for you specifically and especially, the 113th Apple Cup was canceled because WSU could not field the required 53-man scholarship roster. Arizona State, coincidentally, also had to cancel their third game in a row. Pac-12 said, F it, we're going to make UW and Utah play each other, so let's do that. Other things surrounding this a little bit. I mean, UW was looking at playing BYU as well as San Diego State. SDS just fell through the drain, and then Huskies and BYU couldn't come to a mutual and solid agreement, so that fell through. And then obviously we moved on to the Utah game, and that's where we're at now. That being said, to kick this off, I personally think Utah might be a little bit better of an opponent for us than Wazoo would have been. What do you think?
I think that's tough to say. It's really hard with Utah having just played the one game, as their first two games were already canceled. So that would have been horrible for Utah if they weren't able to match up against UW this week. But with their first 2 weeks being canceled, their first game was against USC last week. And I mean, they struggled in it. But then again, UW struggled in their first game against Oregon State, and it wasn't like UW was playing a top team like USC. So you got to cut them a bit of slack there. But I mean, Utah had 5 turnovers that game against USC. They were off sync all second half of that game, losing, I think, 17-33, something around those lines.
Exactly that.
Yeah, and I mean, they didn't show a lot, so it's really tough to grade versus Wazoo team, Washington State, who in their first 2 games, they've looked relatively decent. I mean, nothing super special, but they're 1-1. They fought really hard against Oregon, ended up losing by about 2 touchdowns, I believe, but they were in the game till almost the end, which against a team like Oregon, that's what you're looking for when you're a team like the Cougars. I kind of look at it like the Cougars are a bit below average team maybe, and then Utah's a bit above average maybe. So they're really close. It'll all depend on how good of a week of practice Utah had, which might have been tough because they were preparing for a whole nother team, and how fast Utah can get off and knock those cobwebs off.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to play out the same direction for us too. Like, because I mean, we were prepping for a completely different opponent as well. So I think one comes out.
I think Jimmy Lake at a press conference said at one point he had
4
like playbooks he was looking at, and four teams he was scouting.
Jeez. Props to that guy, but I feel bad for him. Like, having to scout 1 team alone is enough work, but 4, oh my gosh. Back to the Utah. I think we're gonna beat Utah though. I just think that's just gonna be a fact. We're gonna beat Utah. I mean, if you look at it, if you compare Utah versus USC and then you compare Arizona versus USC, I think Arizona played much better against them than Utah did. I think it's a pretty fair look because they were both their first-ish games being played, and both of them were against USC. We crushed Arizona, who, I mean, like you see the kind of like X if this and this and this and this and this. I think we beat Utah. I think that's pretty much out of there because I mean their offense doesn't look too hot. They were having more pass yards than rush yards, but I mean I feel like our secondary is better than USC's anyway. I mean I just don't see realistically how Utah beats us without something crazy or absolutely weird happening in the next 4 days.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's going to be a UW victory. I think very similar to the USC score. I was thinking 31-17 UW, kind of a close-ish, but not really close game, one of those, it's always about 2 possessions away. Because I just think that UW's team is very good on defense, and their offense is kind of coming to, they've clearly found their identity running the ball. I mean, they have a 4-headed monster back there, basically. Just, they could give it to any one of those 4 guys, and I'd be like, okay, I'm fine with either one of those guys being back there with the way they've played. So I think it's going to be tough for Utah to stop the Husky offense in the run game. And then it's going to be tough for the Utah offense to get anything going I believe Utah's quarterback actually got injured against USC because they played 2 quarterbacks. So I'm not entirely sure the condition of him or if he's playing, but that might be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I mean, I just don't know how much you can talk about this Utah versus Husky game. Like touching on the passing game again, I guess like they threw a ton of incompletions. They threw 3 interceptions to USC. I mean, I just harp on it again. Like our secondary is going to have a field day. I mean, like our inner linebacker core D line, I think is probably one of the weakest parts of our defense. I don't see that being a problem against Utah either, really. They have 1 or 2 strong rushers. I think 1 definitely strong rusher, but I mean, I don't see that being a problem either.
Yeah, they lost their leading rusher from last year, Zach Moss, to the NFL. So they've got a new running back.
And a new leading rusher, I guess, technically. Well, let's head into the